Hello and welcome to trainingrite.com. Today we'll be talking about Selenium RC Server. How you could be using Selenium RC Server to test a web application. Before we begin, I'm going to give you the scenario we will be testing on. So I'm going to be taking you to an insurance company website. This insurance company is a large insurance company in United States and probably all over the world. And what they offer is different insurance services. They do have home insurance, life insurance, customer service, different types of functionality on this site. Let's say you have been hired and you have been asked to test the functionality of how this particular feature is working. You have to automate that process. So what we get here is a free quotation. Free quotation for what? Free quotation for different types of insurances. If you want to go for an auto insurance or if you want to go for a home or renter's insurance, I'm going to be walking you through right now as how we will be testing the renter's insurance part of it. So from this drop down, I'm selecting a renter's insurance and I'm going to be putting some zip code. The zip code in question is 07601. That happens to be the randomly chosen zip code. And we want to start the process of starting a code. When I click that button, basically it's going to navigate to a page where it is asking for some information from us. The information which the application is asking for is your first name. I want to be putting it as John. Let's say the last name is Doe. And the street address 123 Main Street. Since we entered the zip code, it picked it up as this particular town, which happens to be Hackensack, New Jersey. Now it is asking me for my date of birth. Of course, I'm not going to give them my date of birth, so I'm going to be putting a random date of birth. Let's say it's going to be 11/1980. Just making up. And it's going to be asking you for a phone number. I'm going to be putting a phone number as 201, let's say 555-1212. Looking for an email address, let's say jdoe at gmail.com. All right, what I'm doing right now is walking you through as a manual tester how you're going to be testing this application. So we came to this page from a previous page where we had entered the zip code, and then it landed us into this page. It is asking us to enter some information, which we're doing right now, and then let's see what it shows when we click on continue. When I hit on continue, it basically would bring me to another page, I guess, and it is asking me some more information. It's asking me the current insurance. Do you currently have home or condo or renter's insurance? And then there's a drop-down box. You, as a software test engineer, I want you to focus on the fact that how the controls or the data is being populated in here. What kind of controls are we using? So this is a drop-down control which I'm using here. Let's say I don't have an insurance, right? So I'm going to say no. During the past 5 years, do you have any claims? I'm going to say no. For the next one, have you had a condo or a renter's policy canceled? No. Do you have an auto policy? No. All right. And I'm going to hit continue. And again, it's taking me basically to one more page. I want you to notice the fact that on the left-hand side here, the fact that I had entered some information so far, it had automatically generated a number here. That is going to be our quotation ID, right? Even though the whole process is not completed yet, but it had generated a number for me. And it is asking me for some more information. Now, the other information it is asking me for is number of units in your building. I'm just going to go with one. Primary material on your outside walls. I don't care about that. I could just go and pick this aluminum and plastic siding. Estimated value of your personal property, right? I don't care, probably 15,000. Some other options it is asking me information for, like the safety information. Do you have a burglar alarm? Do you have a deadbolts lock on exterior doors? Blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to keep it as is, even though I have the option of selecting, but I'm just going to keep it simple. Additional information, how many miles is the residence from the nearest fire station? This being an insurance company, they're looking into, like, let's say, just in case of a fire, how long does it take for the fire guys to show up at your place? How many feet is the residence from the nearest fire hydrant? Doesn't matter. I just happen to choose that. Do you have any dogs in your residence? I guess no. Alrighty. What else it is asking? It's asking for some other information, like probably it's going to give us some discount looking into our education we have completed. I am going to go with, let's say, my bachelor's or my MD, right? Okay, the college or the university. Now, this is all optional data, right? Since I've not entered anything up here, I'm just going to try and do that here. Let's say I went to a college in New Jersey, and the name of my college, if it is in here, I'm going to pick that, okay, NJIT. Employment status, I guess I'm employed. Okay, current employer, I'm not going to give that information. Okay, let's go and hit continue. A pop-up comes up. It is asking me for my social security number. I am absolutely not going to give my social security number. So I'm going to click on this number, say no thanks. Basically, it had gathered enough information from me that it could give me a quotation, meaning how much it's going to cost me per month. And there we go. It came up with a number here. It's going to cost me as a renter to rent my property, to get an insurance rather. It's going to cost me $14.42 per month, a total of $173 per year. Okay, now this was all manual testing. Let's say if I have to automate this process, how can I automate the process? Meaning the data which I entered, if that has to come from a script, how do I do that? And how do I capture the information? The information it had successfully processed and given me is this information. And if I need to capture that back into my script, how do I do that? Likewise, if I need to capture this quote ID, how do I do that? Stuff like that. Okay, for that, we could be using any one of the automation tools which are hot in the industry. Even though there are many, today we'll be talking about a tool called Selenium. Selenium comes in different versions. You have different flavors of Selenium. You could be using what is called a Selenium IDE, which you could go and click here. It's basically a record and play tool. So that's going to pop up, and then we could go and then we could start recording in here. Now, let's say if I need to record my script, I could start recording all that in here, and basically what it would do is it would generate a script, and I could execute that script by taking it into any of the tools like Eclipse with JUnit 4, and I could be using let's say a Selenium RC server, or I could be using a WebDriver. If what I told you just sounds like gibberish, then let me quickly walk you through what this tool can do. All right. We want, whatever we have done, I want to record the whole process here. So I'm going to begin with going to the Liberty Mutual site. So here I am going to libertymutual.com, right? And I want to start the process. I'm going to bring my browser to the home page, which probably is this. All right. Okay. And then whatever I have walked you through as a manual way of doing it, I'm going to be doing the same thing here using this RC tool, or rather this IDE tool. And then with the code which gets generated out of this, I'm going to be going and then running that code into an RC server and then show you the script which we could basically go through and then down the road customize it by adding some business logic into it, in the sense of for loops going in there, getting data from an Excel sheet, which is parameterization of the data, and eventually we'll be designing what is called a data-driven framework in Selenium. So sit tight and let's get into recording whatever we have done in the past as a manual test scenario. Okay, I'm going to be getting into clicking onto this get a free code. And when I do that, I want you to pay attention on the left side of here. So basically what you see here is as we're going to be performing some actions on the browser, it is going to go and then record things in here, right? So I want you to just pay attention to that fact. Okay, we wanted to go and do renter's insurance. And it asked for a zip code. Randomly, we chose to enter 07601. I'm going to be clicking on start a code, and basically the application is going to navigate and get into this page. Here, I'm supposed to enter my data. As we have done in my manual scenario, I'm going to be doing exactly like that so that we could see that nothing had changed, and my tool will be generating data based on what or generating scripts based on what data I'm entering here. It's going to go with 11/11/1980. Phone number is going to be 201. Let's just say 555-1212, and this is going to be John Doe at gmail.com. Okay, continue. Again, if you could keep an eye here, this is basically what had happened on the left hand side. All right, again, going through the same process. Do you have a renter's insurance? No. In past 5 years? No. No. And do you have an auto policy? No. Click on continue. Right, number of units, I guess we had selected one there, and then it said what kind of material you have outside. All right, so far so good. I'm going to keep things optional here. How many miles you are from? Okay, 0.3 miles or 3 miles and 500 feet. Do you have dogs? No. Highest level of education is, let's say, MD. Select state, I happen to choose New Jersey, and I'm going to keep it consistent. A school I went to was NJIT. Employment status, I am employed. And when I click on that, it's asking me for my social security. I'm not going to provide that. So eventually it's going to go and then generate a code for me and come back with a number. Okay, here it is. It did come back with a number. What I want to do here is I do want to capture this text. So in order for me to capture this text, in Firefox, you could do that by right-clicking and then saying, okay, store text. There are different commands here. As you can see, there's something called a verify text. There's something called a store text, assert text. You could also take a look into show all commands, and these are like the different commands which you could go and use in your script. Okay, in this case, I'm going to store my text. If I do click on that, it's going to pop up a box and ask me, hey, if you want to store this text, do you have a variable where you could store that text? So it is asking me to give the name of the variable. I could come up with something like monthly payment, or whatever name I would come up with. Okay, that's that. Likewise, if I want to store, let's say this is the renters. So if I want to come up with the storing of that, I could say store, and I could say I could name it as a quote ID or something like that. All right, so far so good. So we got everything in here. I'm going to close my browser, and I will stop recording my script. Okay. As you can see here, it did generate this. It did generate a lot of lines of script here. What it is saying here is, okay, I'm gonna open, and it's gonna click and wait. It's gonna. So what we could do is we could run this, right? We could run and then see what it is going to do. Rather than doing that, my intent is not to show you IDE. My intent is to show you the RC server. So let's get started with the RC server. So how we will be using the RC server for that? First of all, I have to generate or I have to take a look at the code which this tool had generated for me. And the way I'm going to do that, whoa, I guess I had, by mistake, I had clicked on that, and then the Mozilla had crashed. Basically, what I would have done is even Bill Gates had something crashed while he was giving a demo. Anyways, what I am saying here is whatever it had recorded, let's say I'm not gonna go through the whole process here, but I'm just gonna just click something here and do something here. Let's say I wanna take this and store in a text, and then call it some text, and I'm storing it in that variable. So all that is happening in here. Okay, I close the browser. Here is my script, right? If this was the script which was there earlier, had we saved that, we would have a copy of that. In fact, I think I do have a copy of that. But over here, how would you generate the script for that? You're going to go to, holy moly. Okay. You're going to go to options. I think it is doing that because I'm closing the browser. I'm really not sure about that, but let's experience it one more time. Click that, okay, let's experience it. So I'm going to go to options, and yes, exactly. That's what was happening because I had closed my browser, and when I closed my browser, my Selenium would crash. So my bad. So I should have kept the browser open. You go in here from options to format, and then you go down here. These are the different selections of whatever these commands which we recorded. They can be converted into these scripts. So we have the option of converting into JUnit 4 remote control script. We have the option of converting that into a WebDriver script. For now, I'm going to go with JUnit 4 remote control script. And when I do that, it's going to open up, and then it's going to give me, let me just show it to you. This is basically the script it had generated for me. All right. So this is the script which it had generated for me. Now, had I not crashed earlier, then I would have all that script which I was recording. Lucky for us, I had that from a previous class. So I'm going to open it up and then show it to you. So if I had that script, I would have copied that. I would have copied that, and then basically go into a tool called Eclipse. So here is my Eclipse. That's my Eclipse. And in my Eclipse, I would have come and then paste, the code here, right? So basically, I got to go and open a new project and then do that. And that can be done by going into File, going into New. What am I doing here? Creating a new project. So I click on Project. And this is a Java project. So I click on Java and then I say next. By the way, we are right now into a tool called Eclipse. Eclipse is the IDE or the development environment for us. We will be writing our code in Java. So we have to create a Java project in Eclipse and then write our scripts there. So basically the script would be going into a class. So I would have typed the name of the project here, and the name of the project, let's say, would have been Liberty Mutual Renters Insurance, so that kind of a project. So right now I'm gonna cancel out of that because I already have that project in here. So what I'm gonna do is show you basically. I'm just looking for my okay. The code from the previous class is right here, right? Whatever we have recorded and whatever got generated out of the IDE was copied into this Eclipse. All right. So basically, what it had done is it created a class for me. The name of the class I've given is Liberty Mutual Renters Insurance, right? And we extend what is called a Celanese test case class. Basically, this is like the parent class. Celanese test case class is the parent class. So we are extending that. And as we extend that class, we could be using what is called the Selenium class. And what Selenium class does is it follows the instructions which we give it, right? So what are the instructions here? The instruction is to the constructor of the default Selenium class. I'm saying that, hey, go and open the RC server, right? The remote control server is sitting on a machine called localhost. Localhost refers to your own machine. And then the second argument to this is 5555. That's a port number. And then eventually you are saying that, okay, I want you to open a particular browser and then navigate to this address. So all that had been placed into a function called setup, right? So who created this function? This function got created automatically because of the IDE record, and we converted that script into the JUnit 4 for RC server. So it basically had created this script. Down the road in our future classes, I'm going to be showing you everything from scratch as how to write this script, how to create these functions. There's a function called setup. There's a function, this is a test case. How do you create this test case? By the way, let's go into this test case and talk about it. Before I go into the test case, I want you to pay attention to these annotations. There's something called @before. There's something called @test. Before the start of the function, when you place this annotation, that annotation is significant. It tells basically how to execute this method. Basically, this method, setup method, is going to be executed before any of the test cases gets executed in the class, right? So that's the meaning of this before annotation. And all these annotations are a part of your JUnit 4 framework, right? In our future classes, we'll be talking about the JUnit 4 framework, what are the different annotations which you have in there. There's something called @before, there's something called @after. @after is kind of like clean up after yourself, right? So when everything is done, when everything is finished, this is going to run once, right? And what is this? Is the teardown, meaning that if you have opened any connections to any database for any parameterization of the data, or if you have opened any connections to an Excel sheet or to an XML data document, you could close all that thing over here in the teardown. So teardown is going to run once, right? So that is because we have this annotation @after. So there are other annotations which you will see when we cover the JUnit 4. For now, we notice that there is an annotation called test. At test means that whatever this function is, that function is a test case, right? Treat it as a test case. So apart from before, test, and after, what other annotations we have? We have something called at ignore. At ignore is, let's say if you have more than one test case, and if you do not want to run all those test cases, and if you want to ignore any one of those test cases, then having an annotation of at ignore would having an annotation of at ignore would ignore the execution of that test case. Okay. All right. So now that we have these test cases to execute, and what do we have in the text case? We have this code. And what is the code? Let me walk you through a couple of lines here so that you have an idea of what is happening here. The first line here says that, hey Selenium, I want you to go and open. Open what? We have not given any path here. Well, it is taking the path which is pointed right here. So while starting the RC, I have given the instruction that it has to go and start and point to something called the libertymutual.com website. So that's where it will be going. So when we open Selenium, when the browser gets open, we are saying that, hey, go to this Liberty Mutual website. And then the next line here is, I'm trying to slow down Selenium a little bit. Basically what happens is when you use this command called set speed, right? Set speed method. Set speed is a method of the Selenium object. So what it does is it takes an argument of whatever n number of seconds you want to put in there, and then it slows down, or it sets the speed of the execution of this code. So after the execution of each line of code, it's going to wait for 2 seconds, right? And then it's going to execute this line of code, and then it's going to wait for 2 seconds and then execute this line of code. Now you don't have to do that, but I mean, you know, while I will be showing you the execution of it, it would be easier for us because we would be able to watch it and see what's going on. So that's why I set that set speed to 2,000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. Okay, after that, I want to maximize that window. When the browser opens, it could have open into any size. And if you want it to be maximized, the way we could maximize is we're saying that, hey, Selenium, please maximize that window for me. So it's going to maximize the browser. Once it maximizes the browser, we want to go and then we want to tell it that, okay, you will find links in there. I want you to go and then click on click. Click is a method. Click is a method of the Selenium object, and one of the arguments the click takes is the element it has to go and click. So we are saying that, hey, you will find a link. I want you to go and then click on a link which says get a free code, right? So it's going to go and then click on that. Likewise, after it does that, that small box would show up where it was showing the auto insurance and the renter's insurance and the home insurance. So since it was a drop down, it is going to select from there. So the first argument is what is the box from where it has to select, and then in there, what text is it selecting? Now you might be wondering, like, hey, how is it knowing all of these things? Well, what I'm going to be doing is, when I start to show you as how to write this script line by line, not take a copy of what IDE had generated, but we have to write this code line by line, then at that time I will be showing you as how to exactly get this information. Now, in short, right now, to get this information, we have to use a tool called a Firebug tool. And Firebug tool would help you identify an element on a page different ways. We could identify by a property, which happens to be ID or link or whatever, or we could identify an element uniquely by looking into what is called, as you can see here, looking into what is called an XPath. So how do you get the XPath of an element on a page? How do you get the property of an element on a page? That Firebug tool would help you make it so easy for you to go and then get all this information. Right now, I want to make sure that you follow these steps. Don't pay too much of attention to how did you get this information and all that, because in my future videos I'm going to be going and then teaching you line by line. There will be nothing in here. We will be typing everything as we go along, and then as we type it is going to be performing those actions. So to go over quickly, it is going to go and then type and then wait for the page to load and then blah 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 blah, right? So we have to run this. We have to run this code. Now, before I run this code, we have to have what is called the RC up and running. So the way the RC server can be up and running is if you have the RC server downloaded from seleniumhq.org. I have downloaded that, and I have kept it into a folder called I guess it is in Selenium, and there's in something called all jars. In all jars, I have these different jars which is going to do different things. So in our case right now we need the Selenium server standalone 2.5.0. This basically is your RC. So we need to make sure that this RC is up and running. The way this RC would be up and running is if I go to CMD, command line prompt, and then in here I have to go and start that. For that I have to go to CD CD 2 dots, right? Now I am into basically my C drive, and I have to go to that folder, CD all jars. What was that? No, CD Selenium, and then CD all jars. Okay. Now I have to start my code. Now, in order to start my code, I have to type that command. It's a long line of commands. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy paste and then explain you what it is. So here it is. So I'm going to come in here and paste it. Now, if you see, what I have is I'm telling, hey Java, go ahead and then I want you to execute that jar. And what is that jar? Java space -jar space the name of that jar which we want to start, and that was Selenium server standalone 2.5.0.jar. So, right? So we want to start that, and we are saying that started on port number 5555. All right. Okay. I hit enter, and then basically what it is doing is it is starting that RC server. Now, if you see this line all the way in the bottom, something like jetty, that means that okay, all that server is started right now. Okay. Now that the server is started, how about if we go and start running this application? All right. Running this class. So basically there are two ways of doing it. I could do it in the debug mode and take you line by line, or I could just execute it and then see what's happening. We're going to do that for now. So I'm going to run this, and as I run this, basically it is going to see here it is starting, and here is my Liberty Mutual, and it brought up this insurance. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it as you can see, it is trying to enter John. It is trying to enter Doe now in the next one, and then the street address would be 123 Main Street, and likewise it's entering my date of birth. Then it's gonna go and then enter the phone number, and the script is executing behind the scenes over here. If you see, this is the execution, this is what is happening. And if you could see If I could just minimize this a little bit and show you that these lines, I don't know if you could see the color of the line, that's what it is executing right now. As it executes from line to line, it changes. And let me just see if I could have this browser adjusted so that we could see both side by side. All right. Right now, it is on this line. It is executing. If you could see this, that's what it is executing. So it is getting the, or probably it had gone all the way in the bottom and executing it. Okay, here is my, and I want you to take a look in here. Take a look in here. It says quote ID renters is that, and so it basically finished, right? It finished the execution of the code. It did everything, and then it gave me, it ran the script, and then it gave me some information here. It gave me the quote ID renters is whatever it is, right? So it gave me that. So what basically had happened here is it executed everything, and then line by line it went into, and then it gave me this script. So what I have just shown you is how RC executes this script line by line. But the real fun is not in copying and pasting this script, but to write these lines of code in here. We ourselves should be writing these lines of code and then see it execute. And what we have done is we have considered one test case, which is to give us an output of the renter's ID. Or the quote ID for the renters is that. So that's what it is doing. It executed everything, and then it gave us that quote ID. So that means that the test case had passed. Now we could execute it one more time and then get a different renter's ID. I'm going to do that one more time so that you see that we will get a different ID. This time it was what 146. 37637. If I reduce this time to 1 second so that it could run it faster, it's going to do that again and come back and then basically give me in my output in my console here. It has to give me in my console. Right now it is empty, right? It is executing. The test is getting executed here. As you can see, it is running, right? It is getting executed, and it is typing whatever it needs to type in there. And if you see, let's go back here. And if you see here on the right hand side, there is no ID yet, or the quote ID is not generated. It's going to be generated in the next line. So as you can see, it is typing all that. It is continuing to clicking on that button, continue, and then now it's going to go to a process that. And there we go. We have a new ID now. This new ID is 146-37350, right? Different from the previous one. Okay, now it is executing. It is entering all that data all by itself because of that script which we had copied from IDE and pasted. Now it said no to social security number, and then finally it's gonna go and then give me the amount, which is 1442. And since the test is completed, it's going to close the browser. Okay, what you see here is now it has given me a new renter's insurance. Now you might be wondering, like, okay, how did it get to that? Somewhere in my code I had asked it to do that, right? So if you see here, I am somewhere I'm asking here, right here. I'm saying get me the quote ID, right? So this line is going to spit it out here. That line is going to spit it out there, right? So that's the code. But how did it get that from the browser? Here it is. So we are instructing Selenium, please go and get the text. Get the text from where? From this location. And how did I get that location? That location is nothing but that's the XPath of the place where it was showing the quote ID. So it got the complete thing. It got the renters 146,37350. That's the value it got, and that's what we are spitting it out here in system out print line. That's what we are spitting out. So the test did run successfully. Now here is the deal. You're not going to be hard coding the data. As you can see, I have put in a name John, I put in a last name Doe, 123 Main Street, blah blah blah. I'm not going to be doing that, right? When I'm running my my automation test cases, I cannot be hard coding my names or my data. So the data has to come from someplace else. So where do you think the data is going to come from? It could be coming from a database, or it could be coming from an Excel spreadsheet. So what we as software engineers, we have to do is we have to take this test to the next step, which is parameterize the data, right? So the script should be parameterized such that the data is coming as parameters from that external spreadsheet. So what do I got to do next? Basically, I got to go and then have an Excel sheet, and I have to establish the connection to that Excel sheet. So I'm going to be writing some code in here to connect to that Excel sheet. Once it is connected, I will have a function. It is not going to be a test function, but just a function. What that function is going to do, that function is going to read the data from the Excel sheet and bring the data in here into my script. And once I get the data into my script, I could take the data and I could substitute the data in here. So I would have some local variables. I would get the data into the local variable and put the local variable here. And since we will have more than one set of data, I have to have a for loop going on. So I will create a for loop for the number of rows which are there in the Excel sheet. Go and do this. Do what? Go read the Excel sheet, get the data from there, put that data into local variables, and substitute this by that data. And so what I am explaining you right now, what I'm talking about is creating a framework. And this framework is called a data-driven framework. So eventually, in this course, I will be showing you as how to build a data-driven framework in Selenium. So we will be covering quite a bit in this course. You'll be learning a lot. By the end of this course, you will be mastering not just the IDE, which eventually is not that important. It is important, but not that important. The most important thing in here is to be able to write our own scripts, right? So we should be able to write these scripts, not record in IDE, but write our own way. So we will be doing that in RC server. We'll be doing that using the JUnit framework. We'll also be writing the scripts using WebDriver. WebDriver happens to be the latest and the greatest version of Selenium. So we'll be doing that as well. So as I was mentioning, and I would like to repeat it again, you would be seeing quite a bit and learning quite a bit in this course. So sit tight, relax, and I hope we'll have a good, enjoyable journey of a month of learning of Selenium. And thank you for watching this video, and I hope you will come back and watch some more, which I will be putting on to youtube.com. See you in the next video.